You're listening to 90.4 Amman FM. It's Esma here, and we're back again with a brand new episode on From the Author. And today we have the very, very special author, Omani author, Ammar Al Naimi. Ammar, welcome to the show.
Hi, Esma. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure, as always, to be in this amazing place. I think I'm doing a tour. I am doing a tour, I think, of Oman FM 90.4 to see how many different shows I can be on.
You're pulling a whole 360. We're glad to have you here. Now, I really want to talk about your books, specifically Sarim and Hazim, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about them. Could you describe your books for me?
Books,
Yes.
I've gotten quite good at doing the elevator pitch for my books. So let me just put
Let's
this in
do
the
it.
right angle.
Elevator pitch, yes.
I tend to write fantasy, and this is Omani Harry Potter, basically. So these are the adventures of jinn hunters living in Muscat. Action, adventure, a bit of Omani folklore, but I try to say that it's a bit deeper than that. So that's my elevator pitch. That's my elevator pitch. The main characters, or the main character, is Muscat Al-Blushi. You can see him on the cover.
Oh, that's
right there.
Mishal, okay.
That's this kid.
Ah,
This kid right over here.
Right.
Muscat is suffering. At 15 years old, he has a jinni in his head.
Right.
But now he has special powers. He can shoot fire from his hands. So one day, Mishal gets saved. And they say, Mishal, you have superpowers. Come on in. We have an organization, Sarim, and we fight to protect Oman from jinn, and we need you. So it's a book of, as you can tell, action, adventure, and
Yeah.
folklore. But it's really a story of what happens when you get to the bottom rung of the ladder. You know, you're at your worst spot in your life.
Yeah.
How do you climb out? And how can you reach a spot where you can say, no, I deserve to be happy, okay?
Yeah.
I deserve good in my life, and I'm not happy right now, but I will be someday.
It's amazing. Let me ask you about your journey as a writer. I think this is what I'm more interested in. Let's
Yeah.
start simple.
I started, actually, you know, every time I get asked this question, I come up with a different answer, and it's because I seem to be unraveling some stuff.
That's what making you open up today.
So recently I found out that I actually started writing a long time ago. And this goes back to me being taken to a private school when I was, I think, 10 or 11, something like that, sixth
Yeah.
grade. And when I joined the school, it was to a point where I would misunderstand questions. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what's happening, right? So they call my parents in. They're like, this kid is not doing okay. We need to fix this, or else he's not going to be able to acclimate, and he's going to have to go to a different school where there's less English. So dilemma, you
Yeah.
know, terrible.
It's crazy.
You know, and you're this kid. I was that sort of kid where I'm like, لا أنا أحسن واحد, I'm the best in class. And like,
Confidence, this, huh?
right? And then like being confronted with your own failure, right?
Okay.
Right. And so I'm struggling, but the teacher had hyped up this book so much that I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I
Yeah.
read the first page, I understand nothing. 10 pages in, nothing. 15 pages, I'm sort of getting into it. 20 pages in, I'm sort of understanding what's happening. 50
Yeah.
pages in, I hit my stride.
Nice.
And then by the time I finish the book, hey, I understand English.
That's
So then-
amazing.
So I burned through book 1, book 2, book 3, all the way to, I think, Order of the Phoenix was out at
Yeah.
the time. And I get really good grades. And,
All of this from Harry Potter.
and keep in mind, I have no idea what happened. I'm like, okay, I guess I just, I guess I'm just that good. But it was the reading because, I got through the Harry Potter books, and then there was a book series that I can't remember the name of, which was all about an enchanter with 9 lives. So like his special power was that,
Yeah.
if something happens, he bounces back, but he can only do it 8 times.
Yes, I get it.
And so it was just book after book after book, his dark materials and so
Yeah.
on. لحظة, you asked me about how I started writing.
Yes, I
I
did.
haven't even
No, I love
gotten
the
into
story.
that.
I love the story. I'm down here for all of this.
So I find out that I adore stories, and I knew this from before because even when I was younger, I would read a lot, but it was always like magazines and
Yeah.
قصص الصحابة, including Ammar bin Yasser, like
Yeah.
who I had an affinity for. Right?
Exactly.
But then I really fall into my stride when I start reading fantasy. So now I'm in 8th grade and I'm reading all these fantasy books, just like shelves upon shelves of books. And I'm falling into that world. Like it was to the stage where we had a lunch hour in my school.
Yes.
And so I would eat lunch as fast as possible. I'd go to the library and I'd start reading. That was me. I was that guy.
An obsessive reader.
Unfortunately, at the
Come
time.
on, look at where you are now.
Yes,
Don't do
Ala.
unfortunately anything.
Right. So at 8th grade, and I forgot about this.
Yeah.
Our teachers said, we'll give you like an assignment where you write something. And at the time, I was really into a series of books called Aragon, the Inheritance series by Paul Cow. Okay, I think I'm gonna need to Google that.
It's fine.
So I really loved that book series, and I think at the time only book 1 was out. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do something creative. I'm gonna do something amazing, and I'm gonna do a story. And I start writing, and I write a story.
Oh yes.
I write a story about an elf who's going through a forest by horseback, and she gets attacked, and she drops an egg, and she uses magic so that the egg goes somewhere, and then a kid finds it, and he opens the egg, and inside he finds a werewolf. And I write all of that. Now, Asma, if you don't know this is the exact plot.
No way.
It's the only difference is in that series, it's a dragon. In this series, it's a werewolf for some reason. It's the only difference. Yeah. And so I write it like with my messy handwriting, nobody could read on paper. I write like 10 pages of it. I give it to my teacher. I don't think she ever read it, to be honest. Like, I think she tried, but it was so messy and it was so derivative and all of that, and it made no sense.
What did she say?
She's just like, thank you so much. I'll get right back to it.
This is why you don't remember her name.
I'm coming right back, bro. But like to this day, I completely forgot. This was probably my first time trying to write something long-ish.
Yeah. So when did you start writing very seriously?
It was 2012, so 10 years ago.
How old were you, if you don't mind sharing? Mind sharing?
Yeah. I think I would have been 19.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, 19?
19.
We can cut it off the interview
Nah,
later
it's
on
fine.
if you like.
I think I would have been 19 or 20. So I was a student in Germany.
Yes.
So now I'm going to paint the scene. It's 2012. So you can imagine like
this is happening. Yes.
you can imagine like it was all black and white. Jazz music in the background, just blues.
Okay.
And I was on a bus in a city called Marburg, and I was the loudest person on that bus. The reason was I was describing to a friend of mine my favorite book. And I was telling her about a genius called Patrick Rothfuss, who had just written The Name of the Wind. And I was reading it, and I was just telling her, you don't understand this. Patrick Rothfuss is not human anymore. This book is incredible. It has the best writing I've ever seen in my life. And it's all about myth. And it's about this guy who's telling his life story slowly over the course of 3 days. And he goes, and like there's a magic system that I don't understand yet, and it's incredible. And she just looks at me and she's like, you're really excited about this? And I was like, yeah, I am. And she said, تعرف Ammar, your English is good. Have you ever thought about writing? And I said, خلي عنش, it's impossible. It's impossible. And then I stop and I take stock. Why is it impossible? What is it that stops a person from being a writer? What is it that makes me so beneath those whose writing I admire? What do you need to become a writer? No, what you need is 3 things. Mm-hmm. You should have read a lot so that you can get that muscle going.
Yes.
And I read a lot. You need to have good language skills, and I'm passable at English. And
now.
Now, after, yeah. Thanks, teacher. And the 3rd thing you need to do is to understand the structure, and that comes with practice. So the only thing I'm missing is the practice. And this thought just boils, and it roils through my head, just like ink in waves, right? And just expands and it expands. And I go back home that day. And I remember, the sunlight was streaming through the window because I didn't have curtains at the time. And I open a notebook and I start writing. and I think, what was the sentence? It was a sentence about a boy waking up and slamming his head against the dashboard. Who's this? I don't know this character. And I continue writing. And I found out that I loved it. That it was it felt the same way as having held my breath for my entire life and then just letting things go through. It was almost like breathing onto the pages. It was that easy.
It feels like an epiphany of some sort where you realize that, okay, not only that I am capable of doing this, but I actually really, really love it.
Yeah. Like once I started writing, I could not stop. Now, that story doesn't exist anymore because what I did since 2012, I was writing and deleting because I understood that I wasn't at that level yet.
Yeah.
So I spent, I think, 9 years of practice.
That's brilliant. That's dedication. That's discipline of some sort.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, if you love to write,
Yeah.
you start to get impatient. You want people to read it, but then you go through that thing where you send it to a friend, and they don't read it. And you go like, okay, I need better friends. But then you send it to your very good friends who are readers, and you find out that you didn't go through it. You go like, okay, something's missing here, because they opened the first page and they didn't finish it. They said, I like page 1. But then if they didn't finish it, something must be missing.
Yeah.
And so you start to work on your craft. You start to improve. And then you go like, now he read 5 pages. I've improved. And they go, okay, now they're reading more. And then at some point when, like, they're actually getting through it, you're like, okay, I think I've hit something now.
I get it.
So that's how I started writing, seriously.
Hey, awesome. Well, what inspires you? I know you've covered mostly, the answer to that question, but if you can pinpoint to what really inspires you, at least what keeps you motivated to write more.
Motivation is never really an issue for me, alhamdulillah.
That's
I
good.
know that for a lot of people, there's like a toughness that's there. There are blockages. Some people really struggle with it. Are you that way?
I am extremely motivated, unnecessarily motivated. I'm just one
Oh,
of those people
okay.
that are go-getters. I'm stubborn.
Oh,
And it
wow.
stems from my stubborn side. It's like, even if somebody doesn't really trigger that, no one's there telling me, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. But I like looking at challenges and be like, well, I'm just gonna do it
Yeah.
because I want to prove to myself that I can. And it just comes from this really stubborn side of me.
One of my favorite authors, who's Terry Pratchett, who writes satirical fantasy with
Yeah.
like very philosophical and scientific undertones. The man is motivated more than anything by spite, or he was. He passed away, unfortunately. And it was the thing that he used to write, and critics used to say, this is not real writing. And so, to get back at them, I think he ended up writing like 40 books set in the Discworld series. By the way, I'm just going to take this moment and I'm going to tell everyone about the Discworld, if that's okay.
Okay, let's do it.
Because like I can promote my books, that's fine. But let me promote Terry Pratchett right now. Let's focus like on one of my favorite authors.
Okay.
Terry Pratchett, his story was that he loved reading, and so he describes it as he started to almost live in the library where he grew up, and when he ran out of fun books, he started reading history, and then he started reading mythology, and then he started reading science, and he just ran out of books at the library. Can you imagine?
Running out of books to read.
In a library. So his writing is the Discworld, which is I think the crowning achievement here, is a series of like a lot of books, at least 30, and I've heard maybe 70, but I'm not sure on the number. And each series is a quartet, so 4 books. Each one revolves around a specific topic, and they're all centered in the Discworld, which is a world which is literally a disc on top of a mountain, on top of a turtle, which is hurtling in space.
Wow.
And that to some of the readers or listeners, you can tell that there is mythology around the turtle, because this is ancient mythology. But in his world, like the gods exist. Like people know the gods. They know about them. Like they see them sometimes. And magic is the thing. Is magic is a thing to the point that it has a color. Like you go, oh, that's magical because it's that specific color,
Yeah.
which is half brown, half green, and half orange. It's magic, so it's three halves, of course.
Of course.
And and death exists, and death is really nice, and death likes cats more than anything else, and he tries to give people life advice, and Terry writes in a funny way, which gives you all those magical things, but also really hints at humanity.
It seems like you really admire this author.
Oh yeah, Terry Pratchett, Patrick Rothfuss.
Yeah.
Um, who else? Who else? I tend to fall in love with a different author each couple of years. Like right now, I really love Will White.
Okay.
The Cradle series.
Let's go back to you.
Okay, fine. Right.
No, but this is fun. This is nice because it is also important to appreciate other creatives and not only appreciate them just because, they're good at what they do, but in a genuine way where you can even seek some sense of inspiration, would you say?
You need to be inspired. For me personally, I try to get inspired from a wide array of places. So most recently, I got inspired by a rap song that I found on Twitter.
I love this. Continue.
And I can't exactly remember what this rap song is called or where you can find it, but it's a rap song in Arabic about the Arabic language.
Yeah.
And it's from the perspective of somebody who doesn't like the Arabic language. And it's almost satirical. But while this person was rapping and describing, how this language, Arabic, evolved and how it evolved, how poetry was inspired by it, how different sets of scientists were inspired by Arabic, I said, you know what? The Arabic language is really cool.
Yeah.
Now, yes, I write in English.
Yes, you do.
But what would happen if I write a book series which is all about the power of language? Okay. And then I think it was during that time that Aisha Sefi won or was competing in Ammar Al
Okay.
Ammar Al. So these two things aligned, and I said, how about I write a book series which is maybe 20% Lord of the Rings, but the magic system is inspired by Arabic poetry, where if you craft your piece of prose well enough, or your piece of poetry, and you say a line about a rock, that rock will listen to you and start to move, but you have to do it really well. So it's all about the poetry.
Yeah.
And so that means that this world is all about language. So
I get it.
This all comes from a rap song.
You know what? I feel like when you're a creative, absolutely anything and everything can be inspiring. But let's talk about your book. What were you trying, or what was the message that you're trying to convey to your readers through Sarim and Hazim?
So Sarim and Hazim, and this is something I found out recently. It's not really about the how, it's about the why when it comes to these kinds of creative endeavors. And recently I found out that whatever I'm writing, on some level, I am talking about freedom. The freedom to do the thing that you want to do more than anything else in your life. Like that seems to be everywhere, and I hadn't even noticed.
I understand.
So in Sarim, I was asking a question about what life would be like if you had accidentally convinced yourself that you're worthless, if you had fallen into nihilism, if you had gone into, I'm small, the world is huge, and so nothing I do matters. How can you reach a spot where you can say, no, I deserve to be happy?
Yeah.
And that's what Sarim is about.
That's beautiful.
But while also being about Omani folklore.
Yeah.
And jinn hunters and action and all of that.
Guys, you need to catch his books because I think I am now officially a reader.
Hey,
And I think I'm going to get those books and give them a read. All right, now what do you advise other writers that would like to write professionally?
I think writers should definitely, first of all, read as widely as possible, because reading is going to be the food, the nutrients that you take in, which then translates into your writing. Read as widely as you can in as many strange genres as you can. So I think one of our previous interactions was an argument about whether fiction or nonfiction is the thing, right?
I remember that day. I mean, come on. How can you forget a day like that? You can't. Me in a panel? It's fun.
So even if you don't really read nonfiction, you should give it a try. And if you find things that are strange or which draw you in outside of your preferred genre, do that. When you write, try to keep an open mind. Try to keep a perspective of improvement. One of my favorite authors, Neil Gaiman, very often says that the first million words you write are going probably to be bad. So you need to get through the bad words first before you can get to the good ones.
Yeah.
And it's a painful thing to hear, especially if the first thing you want to write is your passion project, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's necessary to understand that you're going to improve and you're not going to be the best writer in the world right off the bat. And that's okay. But you have to accept that there are mistakes that you're making and that you're gonna continue to make mistakes for a while.
Practice makes perfect, but when you have a lot of aggression to it, something, all you gotta do is trim it down to create perfection.
Yeah, so.
All right, so what's next for you, Ammar?
I am currently, I'm just gonna do this very quickly. So I told you about Sarim today.
Yeah.
And I think 2 weeks ago, I published Hazim, which is the second part in the series.
Congratulations.
Shukran. And Hazim is all about, well, now that you're starting to get some self-respect for yourself and you're starting to feel happy very slowly, what does it mean to love someone? What does it mean to... Does loving people mean that you will protect them from their mistakes? Or does it mean that you respect them enough to let them make their mistakes and learn from them and trust them to do well? That's what this book is about.
Nice.
So now I'm writing part 3, which is called Mumit.
Nice. Mumit.
Because Mish'al was Sarim and then he became Hazim and now he's going to be Mumit.
Nice. Where can we find your books, Ammar?
This is the one question I did not expect to answer. Currently, Sarim is officially sold out. However, Shukran. Thank you so much.
More copies?
More copies, inshallah. I'm trying to change the way that I publish. So I'm trying to go through publishing houses here in the GCC. That takes time. In the meantime, you sometimes find a couple of copies in Borders. Like there are probably like 50 copies of the book just floating around Muscat.
Yeah.
So there are a couple in different bookshops such as Rizal Al-Qarra, Suika Art Cafe, Borders, so on and so forth.
Right.
Hazim is more widely available. I think the best thing to do if you're interested in getting one of those copies is to reach out to me on Instagram through @NaaimiHero, NAIMIHERO, and ask me. And I will try to figure out where the nearest copy is.
Well, you heard it here, Muscat Candid. Ammar, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming. Congratulations. This is absolutely brilliant, and I'm officially a fan now.
Shukran.